What's up, everybody? It's your boy Roy here, and we are on Luke chapter 20 on our journey through the book of Luke, where we're doing a chapter a day or a chapter a video. And essentially, I just read out of the World English Bible, and as I feel led or I will speak along the way about things to give insight, to bring out a principle, a truth, or understanding that I think might be beneficial, or just kind of bring out those surface level truths for the listener or viewer to grasp. So that's what we've been doing. It's very, more devotional rather than exhaustive. Yeah, so with that said, let's go ahead and get in today's reading and devotional. Luke chapter 20, verse 1. On one of those days, as he was teaching the people, this being Jesus, in the temple and preaching the good news, the priests and scribes came to him with the elders. They asked him, "Tell us, by what authority do you do these things, or who is giving you this authority?" So real quick right here, I wonder if, obviously in the previous chapter, if I remember right, yes, again, he came in and he cleared out the temple, right? So perhaps that is one of the events that they are talking about, or issues that they have, or even the fact that he is there teaching in the temple. And I don't know the ins and outs about whether he would have been allowed or had that permission, but that could be also a possible reason why they're, questioning his authority. And perhaps they've also heard about him and his miracles and his teachings and all the things that great works he's been doing. So perhaps that was also part of their questioning. But anyways, verse 3, he answered them, "I will also ask you one question. Tell me, the baptism of John, was it from heaven or from men?" They reasoned with themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Why didn't you believe him?' But if we say from men, all the people will stone us, for they are persuaded that John was a prophet." They answered that they didn't know where it was from. Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." So it was always interesting that, just in the way that men always tried to trip him up, he always had, a way to kind of stun them too. I mean, he went toe to toe with the devil, the father of lies, and so uh, so he's definitely very aware of their tactics and what they would do, and he would always know how to turn and put it back on the spot. So let's see here. Verse 9, he began to tell the people this parable. A man planted a vineyard and rented it out to some farmers, and went into another country for a long time. At the proper season, he sent a servant to the farmers to collect his share of the fruit of the vineyard. But the farmers beat him and sent him away empty. He sent yet another servant, and they also beat him and treated him shamefully and sent him away empty. He sent yet a third, and they also wounded him and threw him out. The Lord of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. It may be that seeing him, they will respect him." But when the farmers saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, "This is the heir. Come, let's kill him, that the inheritance may be ours." Then they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. What therefore will the Lord of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy these farmers, and will give the vineyard to others. Real quick, let's touch this. When they heard that, they said, "May that never be." But real quick, okay, going back into this parable, this is what I get from this. This is that the people that the man who sent out his servants and who were beaten and treated shamefully, My best guess or understanding is that's a reference to the prophets through the ages that God would send to awaken uh, the hearts of Israel and to show them their error and their ways. And obviously the Son then after would be is representative of Jesus himself, and we see that and know that he had already predicted his death, and we know that he will die as a result of um, as a result of the as a result of the plots of the Jewish leaders and rulers. They will He will die, and so I believe that that's what um, this parable is referencing, and obviously, I think also it also shows that how they were a lot of the religious leaders of the day that day were threatened by Jesus, by his ministry, and how it was kind of, well, not kind of, it was definitely undermining their rule and their rules and traditions and authorities. So not wanting to lose that and wanting to keep that. So I believe that can also, in this parable, speak to their own motives. And they're kind of like, well, may that not happen. I don't know if what their response is, if they fully knew and understood that parable, if they were kind of like agreeing, like, yeah, made something like that never happen, or or made the people who, I don't know why they responded the way they did, for sure, but. Uh, but Jesus didn't seem to like their answer because then he goes 17. But he looked at them and said, "Then what is this that is written? The stone which the builders rejected was made the chief cornerstone. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to pieces, but it will crush whomever it falls on to dust." Um, Obviously, as we go on, this did not make the priests and the religious people who heard this too happy. Now get it, like, he's starting to deal with the chief priests, like we're like at the temple, like the main temple, and some of the high ruling leaders of the Jewish people now are coming into direct confrontation with Jesus himself. But basically, what I understand, or how I always interpret this passage that we just read, was um, basically Jesus' message. Not only Jesus himself, but his message will prove to be a stumbling block for many, not only for the religious, but for many people in general. Um, so, and those who fail to, and a cornerstone is like the prime piece of a building. Like, it is like the structure which everything is centered upon. So if you neglect that cornerstone, then your building is probably going to not turn out well, or it's going to fall um, in ruins, or at least that's how how I kind of broadly understand it. But I understand that Jesus' message of salvation that comes by faith through his finished work obviously goes against what you know many of the Jewish people, and especially the religious leaders up to this point, understood how salvation was achieved. But also for those who aren't Jewish but are Gentile in nature, some of us even still have an idea that we can achieve salvation through our works by being good people, by being good moral people, that will uh, you know, earn us a way into the kingdom. Or some of us will, have trouble um, accepting Jesus as the Messiah, or as the one who came, lived, died, rose again, and putting our lives in his hands. So through that, when we reject him and reject his ministry, well, we can only expect doom and calamity to befall us. So, yeah, so that's kind of what I get out of that. I'm sure that there's something more scholarly, a more scholarly presentation to that. But anyways, verse 19, the chief priest and the scribes sought to lay hands on him that very hour, but they feared the people, for they knew he had spoken this parable against them. They watched him and sent out spies who pretended to be righteous, that they might trap him in something he said, so as to deliver him up to the power and authority of the governor. So again, they're wanting to get the Romans involved. Basically, the people that they're kind of at odds with, now they're like, well, we want to get them involved. So then this kind of even sees by the question that's asked here, verse 21. They asked him, Teacher, we know that you say and teach what is right and aren't partial to anyone, but truly teach the way of God. Is it lawful for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not? So right now they're wanting him to answer a question to go against Caesar, or go against the Roman rule and authorities, and try to trap him up in that way. But he perceived their craftiness and said to them, Why do you test me? Show me a denarius. Whose image and inscription are on it? They answered, Caesar's. He said to them, Then give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. So, verse 26, they weren't able to trap him in his words before the people. They marveled at his answer and were silent. Some of the Sadducees came to him. Now, Sadducees were kind of another group likened to the Pharisees, but they believe in different things. Like, and I can't remember the exact things that they differ on. One of them is here where they said those who deny that there is a resurrection. They asked him, Teacher, Moses wrote to us that if a man's brother dies after a wife and he is childless, his brother should take the wife and raise up children for his brother. There were therefore 7 brothers. The first took a wife and died childless. The second took her as wife, and he died childless. The third took her, and likewise the 7 all left no children and died. Afterward the woman also died. Therefore in the resurrection, whose wife of them will she be? For the 7 had her as a wife. All right, verse 34. So, real quick, obviously, I just want to point out that some of the Sadducees came to him, those who deny that there is a resurrection. So, they don't believe in the resurrection, but yet they're kind of asking him this question about the resurrection. So, again, they're probably kind of interested in seeing how he answers, whether he answers favorable to them to maybe prove their case, or, again, trying to trip him up as well. But Jesus said to them, The children of this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are considered worthy to attain to that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, for they can't die anymore. For they are like the angels and are children of God, being children of the resurrection. But the dead are raised. Even Moses showed at the bush when he called the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for all are alive to him. So he kind of gives them this answer. So they're not able to, whatever their case, whether they were trapping him up or whether he gave them a satisfactory answer. We see verse 39, it says, Some of the scribes answered, Teacher, you speak well. They didn't dare to ask him any more questions. Again, that doesn't necessarily give a sense of whether they were happy with his response or not. What to glean from this is I don't know. Obviously, we can kind of glean a little bit what eternal life is like, beyond this life, and ultimately that God has the power to raise those who die back to life, and that He is known as the God of the living. So, if you have more insight on this particular portion of Scripture, feel free to definitely share your thoughts and comments down below. Let's continue picking up verse 41. He said to them, "Why do they say that the Christ is David's son?" Okay, this is Jesus speaking. David himself says in the book of Psalms, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies the footstool of your feet." So that's out of Psalm 110, verse 1. David therefore calls him Lord. So how is he his son? In the hearing of all the people, he said to his disciples, well, before we get into this, just to kind of make sense of that, basically, right here, why do they say that the Christ is David's son? So that's kind of part of prophecy. And we know that Jesus is that because he is of the lineage of David. But then at the same time, this is David speaking like he sees Jesus. The Lord said to my Lord, which would, in my understanding, God the Father says to Jesus. That's one way you can see it. Sit at my right hand. We know that when Jesus finishes his work, he sits at the right hand of the Father, and that there's a time coming where, you know, all his enemies will be brought to him and under his feet, but and those who are his friends or allies will reign alongside with him. But we see that David, who existed there, calls him Lord. So how is he his son? It's kind of like that whole time, but we know that God stands outside of time or is not bound by the limitations of time, but also, so again, I don't know. I hope that makes sense, but so that's the best I'm going to do at trying to explain that. But I hope that some of it makes sense to you, and I think you can put the rest of the pieces together. Verse 45. In the hearing of all the people, he said to his disciples, "Beware of those scribes who like to walk in long robes and love greetings in the marketplaces, the best seats in the synagogues, and the best places at feasts, who devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. These will receive greater condemnation." So again, Jesus just points out, he condemns those who are all about being outward, have an outward show of devotion, an outward show of commitment, but yet it's not of a truth. It's not of something that's an inward, coming outward flow, and that their motivations for doing it is to, seek, praises and things of that nature. And for those people, they will receive a greater condemnation in the time to come. But so that wraps up chapter 20, as you can see, and we have chapter 21 on the horizon. So we have 4 more chapters left to go through. And so again, thank you guys for joining me. Hope that you who join are benefiting. I know sometimes my speaking can be a little rough, or articulating my thoughts or expressing my thoughts, and I'm just entrusting that the Lord will speak through His Word and speak through me, His servant, to help you understand something or bring something out that you will find beneficial. So thank you again. Look forward to seeing you in the next chapter. And until then, take care. God bless. Peace.